This week, red light runners, flying beds, terrifying truckers, and plenty of bad drivers. It's all coming up on Wham Bam Dashcam. Josh was heading home from his security job when someone ran a red light and T-boned him as he was driving through an intersection. The impact turned his Nissan Leaf and sent it somewhere it had never been before, into a gas station. The car was undrivable, and the driver who hit them took off after retrieving their bumper cover. Since it was a hit and run, Josh's own insurance provider paid for the repairs. Due to supply chain issues, it took 3 months for the shop to get an airbag sensor, the last part they needed to complete the repair. In addition to the repaired Leaf, Josh now drives a Tesla Model 3. We can't wait to see some submissions from him over on Wham Bam Tesla Cam, and hopefully he won't be getting T-boned. This submitter was driving his Mini Cooper SE when he encountered a pickup truck hauling an unsecured load. Just as he was about to pass it, a box spring got caught by the wind and fell out of the pickup's bed. The box spring hit the Mini Cooper's fender and pillar before almost ripping the side view mirror off. Our submitter followed the truck for a while to get the driver's attention, and they eventually went back for the box spring. Once they'd collected the box spring, everyone pulled into a parking lot to exchange information. Fixing the electric Mini cost $5,000 US, but the pickup driver's insurance paid for it after he was found responsible for the damage. Ben was driving below the speed limit following traffic on his way home. An impatient driver decided to pass 2 vehicles at once, but they had to take a quick detour when they encountered an oncoming vehicle. After going off-road and bouncing along in a ditch for a while, the pickup managed to stop just short of a wooded area. Thankfully, they didn't hit anything or anyone else. Leon was just leaving work when he watched a blue minivan speed up an empty lane approaching an intersection. Stopped vehicles had left a gap for turning traffic to get into a gas station parking lot, and the minivan collided with a driver who had turned without checking if the lane was clear. Thankfully, there were no serious injuries. Here's a closer view of a very similar accident. This time, a Honda driver cut between cars to reach a parking lot only to be hit by a Ford SUV coming up the empty lane. Jose made sure everyone was okay before continuing on, but he said the Ford driver was very upset. This submitter was driving his Ram 1500 when he watched a dump truck lose a tire at 70 miles per hour. It was the front right tire, so watch carefully for the truck to jerk to the side and dust going everywhere. The tire eventually disintegrated, sending a huge chunk of tread into the lane behind our submitter, where it looks like it was run over by another pickup truck. Jonathan was driving past a construction zone when the driver of a stopped Jeep on the side of the road suddenly flipped a U-turn right in the path of Jonathan's flatbed work truck. With no way to stop or get into the oncoming lane, Jonathan took the least expensive option and smashed into a construction barrel on his way into the unpaved lane. I found it comical seeing his Chevy emblem go flying. Thankfully, that was the only damage done to Jonathan's vehicle. He turned around after digging the barrel out from under the truck to go back and make sure everyone was okay. A sheriff's deputy in an unmarked pickup truck had pulled over the Jeep driver. Although both drivers were shaken up, everyone was fine. Jerome was heading to work in a 40-mile-per-hour zone. The roads were a bit icy as an SUV pulled out in front of him before crossing into the left lane. Unfortunately, it didn't stay there. Jerome couldn't avoid a collision as the SUV driver turned across Jerome's lane. The SUV driver refused to provide his information, claiming Jerome had been speeding, so Jerome had to call the police. His Jetta had to be towed due to, as he puts it, a broken steering thingamabopper. I'm no mechanic, but I'm guessing he meant the whatchamacallit. He also told us he thinks dash cams should be standard equipment in all new cars. This submitter had just finished shopping for groceries and was headed to get a bite to eat. Suddenly, another driver decided to turn in front of him, forcing him to slam on the brakes to avoid a collision. Hilariously, a police officer had just gotten behind the submitter and witnessed this happen. They immediately followed the other driver into the parking lot. We can't see what happened next, but we sure hope the officer gave that other driver some instant justice. Our submitter told us he hopes everybody who watches this channel has their own dash cam. We have to agree. Tyler was reaching into the back seat for something when another driver swerved into his lane and stopped so they could turn left from a straight-only lane. When he swerved right to avoid rear-ending them, he was narrowly avoided by an ambulance that was in his blind spot. Amazingly, he managed to escape the situation unscathed. Here's where we'd normally show you a Tesla behaving badly, but this week we aren't really sure who's at fault. We're going to let you decide. Kaveh was driving up I-5 when he watched the driver of an Acura merge in front of a Tesla. For whatever reason, the Tesla driver didn't slow down, instead rear-ending the Acura. Kaveh pulled over and exchanged info with both drivers, sending them his dashcam footage the next day. The Tesla driver called and thanked him, but he never heard back from the Acura driver. Kaveh told us that if you have a dashcam and record an incident, pull over and share it with the people involved. You never know how much time and pain you might be saving them. Raimi was driving home from school when another driver turned across the road and into his lane. Thankfully, he'd seen the SUV and had suspected the driver might do this, so he was already slowing down with his foot on the brake. He was able to continue home without any more close calls. Thaddeus rounded a corner to witness a young woman back into his friend's Mazda 3. Thaddeus pulled over to help as his friend had never been in an accident before and didn't know what to do. The other driver ignored his requests for insurance and license information, leaving after giving her phone number. Thaddeus took a photo of her license plate as she left, and police discovered she was unlicensed. By giving her phone number, she at least avoided being charged with a hit and run. Dan was headed to Home Depot when the driver of a Jeep SUV made a right on red and went all the way into Dan's lane. For the benefit of our non-American fans, making a right turn through a red light is legal in the United States as long as you come to a complete stop and traffic is clear. Turning into the far lane, however, is not. Dan slammed his brakes and slid to a stop, honking the whole time. After arriving at Home Depot a few moments later, he sat in the car for a while to calm down. He wanted to shout out his spouse, who doesn't think he's a careful driver. MJ was driving his Toyota RAV4 when traffic on the highway suddenly stopped. Multiple drivers swerved to avoid hitting each other, but one of them was unsuccessful and rear-ended a Toyota. This emitter was passing a semi-truck while on his way home with his son. Evidently, the trucker didn't see him when he decided to move over for flashing lights on the shoulder up ahead. Our submitter floored the accelerator and ran over the rumble strip to get around the semi before it got too close. He told us he honked at the trucker before continuing. Watch what this submitter witnessed on his way home one night. Did you see that? Another driver continued straight from a turn lane and took out a sign that was in the median. Our submitter went back and made sure they were okay, but he noticed their right fender was heavily damaged. Vince's wife Crystal was on her way to work. As she began driving through a green light, she realized a pickup from the right wasn't slowing down. Crystal stopped before the pickup drove straight through the red light without slowing down. Thanks to her attentiveness, she made it to work safe and on time. We know how much our fans love hearing shoutouts, so shout out to Vince and Crystal's kids, Link and Eva Peach. Will was driving on the first day of his spring break vacation when he was suddenly rear-ended. The driver who'd hit Will's Jeep Compass told him that a can of Lysol had become lodged under her brake pedal, preventing her from stopping. Thankfully, she pulled over instead of making a clean getaway. Fans keep asking us to start a Wham Bam Cycle Cam channel, not Biker Cam, bikers ride motorcycles, but we don't get nearly enough submissions from bicycles to make that possible, so we'll just show them here instead. Steven was waiting to cross a street when he watched two car drivers turn too sharply and nearly end up on the wrong side of the road. The first driver noticed their mistake and turned into the correct lane at the last second, but the next one had to climb the median to correct their error. That's all for today. See you tomorrow at Wham Bam Security Cam.